Hello everyone, welcome to Asoka IAS. In this class, we're going to discuss about solar storm. So recently we have seen in news that a solar storm set to hit the earth and it could lead to global power failure. So we'll try to understand in this class what is the meaning of solar storm, what is the geographical meaning of solar storm, and how it affects satellites, power grids that are used for transmission of electricity, then the global positioning system, that is GPS, then on humans. So first of all, let's see for a solar storm. So it looks like this basically. This is solar storm and this is solar wind. Actually, solar wind is bringing the solar storm towards the earth. This is our earth, and around the earth, there is a magnetic field. This is the earth's magnetic field. Okay, we cannot see them, but there is a field that exists. And actually, this earth's magnetic field is protecting the earth from this harmful solar storms, or you can say solar wind. The solar wind brings the solar storms towards the earth. So we'll discuss more about it. See, now what is solar storm? A solar storm occurs when the sun emits a huge amounts of energy. So as we know, in the sun, there is nuclear fusion is going on and hydrogen combined from helium. And in this process, they release a huge quantity of energy. And these energies in the form of coronal mass ejections, they release most of the energy in the form of coronal mass ejections. Now, what is coronal mass ejections? They are large expulsions of plasma and magnetic field from the sun's corona. Now, see what is plasma? Plasma are charged particles. Plasma are charged particles. Okay, plus and minus, they are charged particles along with magnetic field from the sun. Magnetic field. So the charged particles and magnetic field that is released from the sun. It is called coronal mass ejections, and it comes from the sun's corona. Corona means the part of the sun at the surface. Suppose this is the sun, and at the surface we can see that it is burning, right? The fuel is burning on sun, and this upper outer layer is called corona. This part is called corona, and this part, from this part, actually this uh, coronal mass ejections are releasing, and they are released. These coronal mass ejections, they are released towards the other planets and to the universe. And when they release, they carry plasma along with magnetic field of the sun. And plasmas are what? They are charged particles. They are very highly energetic charged particles that comes out from the sun. The atmospheric effects are felt on Earth even after they occur on the sun, which is far away from it. See, the atmospheric effect of this solar flare. Okay, the atmospheric effect of the solar flare on Earth can be visible. We can see the effect. We can actually observe the effect. Okay, so since as we know the Earth is very far away from the sun, but still we can see the effect of this solar wind on Earth, the atmosphere of the Earth. This effect can be observed. Now, the current storm approached the Earth at a speed of 1.6 million kilometers per hour, according to NASA update. Now, what is the speed of this solar flare? It is 1.6 million kilometer per hour. You can see what is the speed of this solar wind. It is moving at a very high speed towards the different planets, and this is the speed that was updated by NASA. The solar flare was detected on 3rd July 2021. Okay, recently on 3rd July 2021, we have detected this solar flare that was ejected from the sun's surface. It was ejected from the sun's equatorial hole in the atmosphere. And the solar flares can travel at a maximum speed of 500 kilometers per second. So if you try to see it in second, it will be approximately 500 kilometers. And per hour, it will be 1.6 million kilometers. So you can see here when 1 second they are moving 500 kilometers. So it is very high. The speed is very high here, and they are traveling through this vacuum. There is no atmosphere in between Earth and sun. There is no atmosphere, and since there is no atmosphere, the light will travel at a very high speed along with plasma. Light along with plasma, they will travel at a very high speed. They will reach towards the surface of the Earth, actually towards the atmosphere of the Earth, and in the atmosphere they will interact with the geomagnetic field. They will interact with the geomagnetic field of the Earth, and the geomagnetic field of the Earth is actually protecting the Earth from these harmful rays. We can see phenomena like aurora in the North Pole and South Pole, aurora australis, aurora borealis. They are also the result of these interactions of the Earth's magnetic field with the plasma that comes from the sun. The solar storm is called geomagnetic storm as it causes disturbances on the Earth's magnetosphere. When the solar storm, when it comes from the sun and it interacts with the magnetic field of the Earth, I'll show you in the diagram again. See, when the solar flare, when they come, when they reach up to Earth and they interact with the magnetic field of the Earth, and if they disturb the magnetic field up to a very high extent, then we call it geomagnetic storm. If they normally they keep on coming and they keep on interacting, this plasma they keep on interacting, but sometimes the solar flares with solar wind, it reaches up to this Earth and they will interact on the magnetic field of the Earth, and at that time what will happen, there will be some disturbances in the Earth's magnetic field, and if the disturbance is more, we call it geomagnetic storm, as it causes major disturbances in the Earth's magnetosphere. It occurs when there is efficient exchange of energy from the solar wind into the space environment surrounding the Earth. So if there is an efficient exchange of energy, that is coming of plasma, highly charged particles of plasma, and this plasma, when they will interact with the geomagnetic field of the Earth, there will be exchange of energy, and this plasma are carried by the solar wind, and when this plasma will interact with the space environment around the Earth, so it will lead to some geomagnetic storm. Now the storm is a result of changes in currents, plasmas that are produced by the solar winds. So the solar storm is the result of the changes in the current, the flow of the plasma, and it is brought by the solar winds. If the solar winds are sustained at a high speed and for a very longer duration, the energy of the wind is transferred to the Earth's magnetic field. Now suppose, for example, this solar storm is coming. Solar storm is actually producing on the surface of the sun. We'll talk about it, about solar storm and solar flare. Now this solar flare actually brought by the solar wind, and if the duration of this wind is more and the speed is more, the duration of the solar wind is more, means interacting with the Earth's magnetic field for a long time, it may create some problem on the atmosphere of the Earth, since it will be transferring a lot of energy in this duration. Now, the coronal mass ejection can take days to reach the Earth after being ejected from the sun. So it may take some time to reach the Earth. It may take very less time also. It may take some little bit more time also. So on 3rd July, such a massive storm caused a radio blackout over the Atlantic. So near the Atlantic Ocean, we have observed that a radio blackout took place on the 3rd July because of this emission of this ejection of this coronal mass. There are different, they can affect the different systems, satellite system, you can see here, GPS signal system may be affected. They can also affect the radio signal that is transmitted from the airplanes, and it may lead to disaster also. It may cause accident also if they affect the transmission of signal from the plane to the ground. Now see, what is solar flare? Solar flares are huge explosions where on the surface of the sun. These are huge explosions on the surface of the sun because of releasing of energy. Now this release of energy and a light and high speed charged particles into space. After this huge explosions, that is called solar flare, and after this explosion on the sun, they will release the energy from the explosion. The energy that will be released from this explosion in the form of light and high speed charged particles, that is called plasma. It will be released to the space from the sun. Now NASA has divided the solar flare into different categories based on their how powerful the solar flares are. Normally, if they are very powerful, we call them X-class flares. If the solar flares are very powerful, we call them X-class flares. The smallest flares can be called as B, C, M, and X. Okay, we can categorize the solar flares based on their how powerful they are into B, C, M, and X. And X are very much powerful solar flares. And this time on 3rd July, the solar flare that has approached the Earth, it comes in the X class flares. It comes in the category of X class flares. This time an X class flare is about to hit our planet, and these are seen as bright areas on the sun, and they can last from minutes to hours. So on the sun surface, we can find this blast, these explosions in a very huge quantity, and that is why these solar flares are categorized into X category, into X class this time. Now, when the coronal mass ejections hit the Earth, coronal mass ejection means the plasmas, highly charged plasmas, along with light, photons. See this when they can cause geomagnetic storms, means when the intensity is more and when the duration is more of the solar wind, and this continuous interactions of the solar wind with the Earth's geomagnetic field may lead to geomagnetic storm, and this could disrupt the satellites and electrical power grids. The coronal mass ejections are high masses of charged plasma that can travel millions of kilometers per hour to reach the Earth, and they are released usually along with the solar flares. So the solar flares that are coming here, the solar flares along with the solar flares, this after this blast, the storm, solar storm, these solar flares, they are brought by the solar wind. The solar wind is bringing the solar flares, and these solar flares they are interacting with the Earth's magnetic field. Right here you can see they are entering the Earth magnetic field, and if it is for long, if the interaction is for a longer duration, then it can affect the different system on Earth, like GPS system, the radio signal system, transmission system, all these things, the power grid, electricity power grid, all these things it can be affected by this wind, solar wind. And as flares are constituted by photons, photons are packets of energy, they are lights. Their solar flares, as you know, they are composed of both light and this plasma, that is charged plasma, highly charged plasma, along with photons. Photons means light. They can travel out directly from their site, and we could be impacted by it. So the solar flares that is carried by solar wind, it carries light and plasma, highly charged energetic plasma. Plasma means charged particles, and light is technically it is called photons, and photons also they are packets of energy only, and these energies when they will interact with the Earth's magnetic field, again it may cause some problem on the Earth's atmosphere. Now see what is the impact of the solar storm on Earth. Now we have understood what is solar storm, how it comes to the Earth, and how it can affect, how it interacts with the Earth's magnetic field. We have seen that. Now we are going to see now what is the impact of the solar storm that we can observe on Earth. Now, effective and higher electrical current that come along with Earth's surface at the time of aurora event disrupts electrical power grids. So the aurora events are very much natural. It is a result of these interactions of the plasma that is ejected from the sun along with the Earth's magnetic field. But sometimes this plasma, when they come in a very large quantity, the interactions will be more, the duration of the interaction will be more, and it could disrupt the electric power grids nearby this North Pole and South Pole. And they can also contribute towards the corrosion of the oil and gas pipelines. So it could be another effect. It may lead to corrosion of the oil and gas pipelines. So there are various changes in the ionosphere. So in the ionosphere, as you know, in the atmosphere, in the thermosphere, there is a layer called ionosphere, and this ionosphere is responsible for transmission of or reflection of radio waves, radio signals, transmission of radio signals on the surface of the Earth. Now this ionosphere, again they interact with the plasma, the charged plasma of the sun. The charged particles of ionosphere, as you know, in ionosphere everything is in ionic form. So this ionic form, the composition of this ionosphere could interact with the plasma, and many times they interact. That is very natural interaction of this ionosphere with the plasma of the sun. And if the interaction is more, the duration is more, or the quantity of plasma, if it comes more, then it could lead to again geomagnetic storm. Geomagnetic storm. So and it will affect the different systems. Now, particularly in ionosphere, it is going to affect the radio signals, the radio communication. Since it is used, ionosphere is used for radio communications. Along with radio communications, it will also affect the global positioning system navigation on Earth as well. GPS system can be affected because this highly charged plasma can affect the satellites also. The artificial satellites also can be affected. In the GPS, as you know, there are many satellites. They are working together for this navigation system, GPS. And once the satellites get affected, the artificial satellites get affected, it may also lead to problem in this system of GPS. The radio communications are in a position to be compromised for a commercial airline. So again, the commercial airlines, as you know, they use the radio signals for the transmission of this signals for communicating with the ground stations, for landing or for taking flight. When they take flight off, at the time they communicate with the ground staff, and for that they use these radio signals. And if the radio communications is hampered by this plasma, it could lead to accidents of these airplanes, mostly in the transpolar routes. Transpolar routes means nearby the North Pole and South Pole, because this effect of plasma and the geomagnetic storm mostly we can find near the North Pole and South Pole, because the intensity of magnetic field is high in North Pole and South Pole. Now, temporary operational anomalies. It may also lead to temporary operational anomalies, and it could cause exposure of spacecraft. Now, spacecraft, when they come in the exposure with this plasma, again, it could lead to anomalies in the operation. Temporarily, it may lead to anomalies, disturbances in the operation of the spacecraft. For example, international space stations, it may also get affected by this plasma, highly charged plasma. The solar plasma cannot kill people. It cannot kill the people directly, but it could damage the health up to a certain level, because since the plasma, once they cross the atmosphere of the Earth, they may come in contact with the living beings, and it could lead to different types of disease also. It can cause different health issues also, but it cannot kill the people directly, but then it may lead to some kind of diseases, skin disease maybe. Okay, so these are some impact we have seen. These are the impact that could be caused by solar storm on the surface of the Earth. So with this, we have discussed about the meaning of solar storm, what is solar storm, and how it comes, from where it comes, how it interacts with the Earth atmosphere, with the magnetic field of the atmosphere. And if the duration is more, if the intensity is more, it could lead to different types of problem in our atmosphere. For example, it could affect the satellites. For example, we have seen satellites like ISS, means International Space Stations, and it could also affect GPS system, navigation system like GPS. The power grids may get affected, means the transmission route of the electricity could be affected by this solar storm, and it could also affect indirectly the humans. The health of the humans can be affected by this solar storm. So with this, I have completed the class today, and if you have any queries, you can write it down. Thank you.